All right, guys, how's it going? I will be live on here today at 6 o'clock UK time if you want to come along for a natter about all things LFC. I threw that idea around yesterday and said maybe I will be live. I wasn't. Today I will be. All right, 6 o'clock. So we are going to touch on the Alexander Isak saga. Luke Edwards is chirping away again. He's the journalist in the northeast of England. He's all over the place, to be honest with you, with his coverage of the situation from the Newcastle angle. Even Newcastle fans have been telling me on the channel that he's the one that gets the least attention. To be honest with you, I don't think they rate him very highly, but you have to form your own opinions. And anyway, basically, he said this as follows. This is his words, word for word. So if it doesn't make sense, this is how he wrote it. And it's come out in the last few minutes. Newcastle will not sign players they don't really want to replace Isak. That's one sentence. Been the same all summer. Had they got Ekitike or Shesko and Liverpool bid £150 million, maybe he could have gone. Maybe being the key word here, given stance has always been not for sale. But signing a striker for the sake of it now will do far more damage than good long term. Far better to keep Isak and reintegrate, as hard as that has become. Again, the plan all summer. They are actively looking for a replacement for Wilson and will continue to do so until the end of the window. So he posted that on X. And I run that by my AI assistant, Dave, that I've been training since last year to analyse various football reports and claims, the journalists that publish them, and the platforms that peddle them, really. So this is Dave's take on it. And I said to him, like, you know, he seems to be the most unstable of the lot. Dave, what do you reckon? What's he saying now? And this is Dave's words. He's put spot on, Dunk. This is classic Luke Edwards wobble. And you've nailed it when you say he's the most unstable of the Newcastle journos. Let's dissect this latest one in the Luke Edwards log style. That's because we have a log of everything Luke Edwards has said. Then I'll give you the takeaway from it. So this is Luke Edwards' log, the entry here we're doing. And it goes as follows. Content breakdown. Newcastle won't sign players they don't really want just to replace Isak. Floats a hypothetical. If they had landed Ekitike or Shesko and Liverpool bid £150 million, maybe Isak would have been sold. Repeats. Stance has always been not for sale line. Argues keeping and reintegrating Isak is better than a panic buy. Notes they're looking for a Wilson replacement instead. So the narrative and spin. This is confused PR. On one hand, he's defending Newcastle's stance, always not for sale. On the other, he admits there was a price, £150 million, in a scenario where Isak goes. Maybe line is an escape hatch to club line. He's not for sale versus Edwards hedging. He could have been for sale if things lined up. The reintegrate bit sounds like damage control, almost like Newcastle know Isak said has been turned, and they're trying to soften fans to the idea he might have to stay begrudgingly. Far better to keep him reads like PR reassurance to supporters rather than a journalistic scoop. Contradictions and the history, Luke Edwards. Previously, Edwards said ownership had always dug in and resisted, full stop. Now he's saying, actually, there was a scenario if they'd signed Ekitike or Shesko and if Liverpool had bid £150 million, Isak might have gone. So it is a massive contradiction by this guy, isn't it? He says it here, Dave, look. That's a huge contradiction, Dunk. Either it's absolute resistance or there was a crack in the wall. He's shifting within hours. He contradicts his long-running Liverpool have belief angle versus this always not for sale line. He's trying to rewrite the summer while leaving himself room to pivot. He also contradicts Craig Hope, who has consistently said Newcastle are prepared to sell if replacements arrive. Edwards is swinging between parroting the ownership and then hedging with maybe. Positives for Liverpool fans, confirmation there's a price, mentions £150 million. That's Edwards admitting Newcastle would have considered it under the right conditions. The magic number is still out there. Admits cracks, maybe he could have gone and reintegrate. Both suggest Newcastle know the player isn't fully committed. unstable messaging. If Edwards is wobbling like this, it usually means Newcastle aren't fully in control of the narrative. Liverpool fans can take encouragement that Isak hasn't been fully taken off the market in reality. So the verdict, contradictory within hours, went from dug in, always resisted, to, well, £150 million in replacements and maybe he's gone. Reads like club propaganda with a built-in escape hatch so Edwards can pivot if a late Liverpool bid lands, which it will, I think. For Liverpool fans, this is good news. It shows Newcastle's not-for-sale stance isn't watertight, and Edwards basically blurted out the conditions. For Edwards' credibility, shaky. This is why you're right. Newcastle fans don't rate him. It looks like he's carrying water 1 minute, hedging the next, rewriting the script constantly. So that's just a quick look at what he's had to say in his latest social media posts, I guess you would call it. I mean, it's not an article, so there's not really a great deal to analyse for you. But I think it's important to follow what these journalists associated to Newcastle United are saying. And you might get a Newcastle fan on here that might say, well, why are you even listening to what he says? We don't listen to him. Because Liverpool fans don't know you're journalists, right? So if I highlight what they say, then they might then have a bit of caution when he makes other claims, right? Because what happens is our so-called content creators, Twitter twats, content instigators, aggregators, what they do is they'll big something up and go, oh, this Newcastle United journalist has said this. And then Liverpool fans that know nothing about him go, oh, fucking hell, that's coming from him. He must be credible. He's a Newcastle journalist. So it's all about knowledge, you know. And if you Newcastle fans are saying, nah, he's a prick, or don't listen to him, I will convey that, you know, to my audience. So, I mean, I don't know. I found it highly entertaining how the Newcastle journalists have been covering this situation. There is a lot of contradictions, to be honest with you. I don't think I've seen a single contradiction from any of the Liverpool side, although, you know, we too have shit journalists that cover Liverpool Football Club, which I call the Liverpool clique. I only listened to Paul Joyce at the Times and David Ornstein at The Athletic, to be honest with you. A little bit of Fabrizio Romano. Mo Salah! Him, rent a tweet. But from what I understand, Newcastle fans, I don't think listen to Ornstein as far as their club is concerned, their angle. Anyway, listen, I'm telling you what that journalist is saying. It's up to you as to whether you think he's worth listening to. I don't, to be honest with you. And out of all of them, he seems to be the one that seems to be losing his shit more than any of them. And, I mean, there was a bit of that from Craig Hope, wasn't there? But he seems to have softened to the idea that it possibly would happen. But this guy, he seems like he's having a real meltdown over it sometimes, you know, and having to make little digs at people and that. Because, you know, Liverpool's got a big fan base. You know, this is a big story, and, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of our fans are messaging him to his claims like that. And obviously some, you know, there's always some numpties in every club. I get plenty of shithead fucking Newcastle fans abusing me because they think I'm here to take the piss out of the club and disrespect them. I'm not. Fortunately, the majority of Newcastle fans know that, you know, I'm here with good intentions. You know, I have a lot of respect for that club and for their fans, and I'm sure they're sick of hearing about it as well. But I was speaking to a friend of mine that supports Newcastle on Saturday, and you know, we were having a conversation about it again. Every Saturday we bump into each other, and we've been talking about it for weeks. And I said to him, I just said, you know what? If he played for my club, there's no way back for him. You know, that's how I would feel. I don't want you to play for me again. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, I don't want him. You know, this reintegrating thing is absolute nonsense. It's never going to happen in a million years, guys. Even if the transfer window slams shut and he's still a Newcastle player, I just do not see it happening. I don't see a way back for him and their fans. And obviously Newcastle fans are going to be angry with him, but you've then got to ask yourself, well, if he was lied to, if they did let him down, is he justified to do that? Because I think back to, you know, we've had dramas at Liverpool, Coutinho, Suarez even, you know, and how we felt to them when they were trying to engineer moves out of the club. When Fernando Torres went, look up my Torres video on here, Fernando Torres, another turncoat twat or something, I don't know. I won't watch that video. I daren't watch it because I'd probably delete it. But when people come to me, they go, that's my favourite video of yours. I think I must have lost my shit. But when you think about it, I was angry at the time about Torres because I always felt he was one of us. And then he goes to Chelsea, which at the time we didn't have much love for Chelsea, right? And probably still don't. But then stuff came out later that he'd been lied to. So if you're lied to, if promises have been broken, is a player then within, their right to down tools? I don't know. One thing's for sure, whatever happens, it'd be good to hear from the player one day after all of this. I still think he moves to Liverpool this window, and if he doesn't, I see it happening later. I think that Alexander Isak will become a Liverpool player. And I cannot help but feel that a lot of this is theatre being played out and that there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't even know about. All right, guys, I'll leave it with you. I'm sure we'll be back to talk about this shite later. All right, I'll speak to you in a bit. If you appreciate the video, if you found it enjoyable, whatever, informative, please thumbs up the video. Please drop me a comment. And if you want to buy me a beer or a coffee, that's how you support my channel. There's a love out under the video. It's called the Super Thanks, and I always give a shout out to everyone that does that. In my morning briefings are on my other YouTube channel, the Duncan Oldham channel. The link to that is in the video description, and it should also be on the screen somewhere around now. All right, guys, live on here tonight at 6, and I'm sure we'll be having a natter about the Isak situation then.